Well, I have to say we're never lonely in the good company of Eamonn McEneaney of Waterford Treasures as he whisks us on another tour, virtual tour, let's just say, through the virtue of our app this morning. Good morning, Eamonn.
Hey, Eamonn.
Good morning, Ollie. Good morning, Mary. Good morning, listeners.
Now, today you're going to talk about Timbertoes, the first bridge over the River Suir.
That's right, and we've a lot of memorabilia here in the museum about it, including a lovely plaque that was erected on the bridge in 1793. And it's very interesting, in that year, a lot of the not all of them, but most of the anti-Catholic laws were repealed by the Protestant Parliament in Dublin. Again, you have to remember this was a Protestant council here in Waterford City, but they were a very open council and a very broad-minded council, and they put actually a plaque on that bridge saying they're celebrating the fact that religious division has been ended in Ireland by the passing of this act, and it's the same year as they built the bridge. And I suppose the building of the bridge links in with the fact that really the 1790s was an absolutely wonderful time for Waterford, that the whole city was being transformed. And again, you can see that in religious matters as well, in the sense that the Quakers were building a meeting house, the Catholics were building the Catholic Cathedral, the first one to be built in the British Isles. The Protestant Cathedral had been rebuilt, the Bishop's Palace had been rebuilt, and really the trade in Waterford was absolutely booming. Most of the merchant class, in fact, were Catholics. Over 50% of them were Catholics. And the big trade was, of course, with America. The glass factory was opened up by the Quakers, so they were hoping to get in the Swiss watchmakers in here. So this was really boom time for Waterford. And the one thing with the city was lacking was a bridge across the river. And we must remember that up until then there was a ferry. And the rights of the ferry were given to a man called Roche, the swimmer, who was involved in the relief of Derry for the victory of William III, the Protestant King of England, over James II, the Catholic King. And he was given the rights to the ferry here in Waterford. So the ferry rights had to be bought out, and they had a competition. An American won the competition, so it was like modern times. You had to go out, they went abroad, tendered out, and a man called Lemuel Cox built it. He also built one in Derry. He built a lot of bridges in Ireland, and interestingly, these were toll bridges, and of course, as you know, to pay a toll you had to queue up. And he built them in America. He was a very clever architect. He'd also build a public house at either side of the bridge. So when people queued, they bought themselves a beer or
use your
a glass
time
of wine.
well.
Yeah, they used his time well. So, and interestingly also, the Waterford architect Thomas Penrose, who would have been the first cousin of the people who set up the glass factory, in fact, he encouraged the glass factory to set up and got them their first great contract from the Lord Lieutenant of Ireland. He actually put in a drawing, which we have in the museum also, the original drawing, of a stone bridge he wanted to build, but I think the wooden bridge was cheaper. And of course, the old mayor's chair that we have in the museum is said to be made from timber when they were demolishing the bridge in 1913. And of course, that new bridge was dedicated to John Redmond, of course, who I spoke about yesterday. It's called Redmond Bridge, which is quite unusual because the man was still alive at the time, just at the peak of his career, just before everything fell apart.
Yeah.
So they called the new bridge after him. But the old Timbertoes, they used to say it's a lucky halfpenny or a halfpenny that brought somebody over the bridge. It was kind of a bit of a, I don't know, it was a compliment in one half, but meaning that people from South Kilkenny or the surrounding counties, when they came here and they made business, which fair dues to them, nobody objects to that, that they had to pay the toll, you see, and therefore the day he or she paid the toll to come across the bridge into Waterford to set up business was a lucky day for them. So
was the toll a halfpenny then, Eamonn?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
oh, right, because there's a halfpenny bridge in Dublin as well, so it must be based on the same
reason,
thing.
Yeah,
okay,
that
interesting.
Was, You see, in the old days, they didn't have a massive big tax systems. I mean, they did have tax, certainly, but the only way you could do these is to pay the toll, and that's what paid off the loan. And interestingly, on the plaque that we have, which celebrates the extinction of religious divisions, and again, it was a Protestant council put that up, which fair credit to them. They also reflect the fact that they didn't get a parliamentary grant. It's a bit like nowadays. The bloody government wouldn't give us a grant.
And put it in stone.
So they're putting it in the stone. We got no grant for this, and we did it all on our own means here in Waterford. But you see, at the time, like, the city was booming. We had this was the high point of the trade with Newfoundland. You know, half the population of Newfoundland, ordinary fishermen and workers who went out there. And we traded. Waterford was the big centre for that trade, and so
gosh,
all
we could do
with
a slice of that now, Eamonn, says you.
Couldn't we indeed, yeah. And of course, the quays, and there's wonderful paintings of this bridge too, which some of them are really magnificent paintings. You know, writers who came here from abroad, and there was always people coming from abroad writing, doing tours of Ireland, as there are, like travel logs, and of course the one of them referred to it as the noblest quay in Europe, and it must have looked like that with all the great sailing ships, this massive big bridge. We traded with apparently 400 ports in the 1790s.
My God.
This was great.
It was
And
the
we were
heydays
third port
in many ways.
Ireland. Yeah, it was, yeah.
Well,
sadly,
hopefully
things have changed.
They say history repeats itself, Eamon.
Pete,
Hopefully that
hopefully,
will be
yeah.
the case. Listen, that's
Sure.
where we got to
Cheers,
leave
Eamon.
it, but
Take
appreciate
care.
the
Thanks
visit as
a million.
always.